I'm not even joking when I say this. I might genuinely buy this watch. Welcome back to Time in the Wrist at Chisholm Hunter. My name is Harrison, as always. And today we have a pretty special guest, and it's special for a couple of different reasons. But the most specific reason, the one that made you click on this video, is probably because I'm genuinely considering buying it. So the watch in my hand at the moment is the new Seiko 5 Peanuts. It is the one with the NATO strap, the one that I want in the collection. So I've always been a sucker for cleanliness, for clean dials, and black and white are the two most contrasting colours that you could get, the two cleanest neutral colours that you can get, in my humble opinion. Now, when I first saw, it's actually sitting here, so I'll get it for you guys. When I first saw this Seiko 5 38mm, I wasn't taken, because it's kind of this creamy off-white that isn't as clean to me. But then, over the course of a week, the Peanuts came in. And not to mention the collaboration, it looks awesome. So let's start by covering the specs of this watch, and then after we get to the specs, we'll discuss why I am genuinely considering buying this model. And I say considering because I've actually just booked flights to Sri Lanka with a special someone, and it was very expensive. But when this comes in at £350 for the package that it has, it's just really tempting. Let's begin by covering the specs of this model and all the little cartoon limited edition goodness that's in this model before we dive into the fact that, or why I want this watch. This watch comes in at 38mm in diameter, a bit like the four other colours of the Seiko 5 38mm, as the name suggests, that are sitting right beside me at the moment in the Chisholm Hunter watch box. But because it has a white dial and because it has a black bezel, they're extremely contrasting colours. I would say it wears slightly bigger than 38 and kind of wears more like a 3940, but it still is extremely well-fitting to smaller wrists. Now, I am a skinny guy. I'm quite a skinny guy. I have 6.5-inch wrists, and I would say this wears pretty perfectly. The thickness on this watch comes in at roughly 12.1 to 12.2 millimeters, and the lug-to-lug comes in at about, from memory, if it's the same as the other Seiko 5s, it should be 44.2, which is actually exactly the same as these other models. So most of the specs, if not all of the specs, are very, very similar, if not the same, than the other models that aren't limited edition. The case on this watch, of course, comes in stainless steel, and this actually gives it quite a bit of heft for being a smaller watch. I mean, it only comes in at 38mm in diameter, so it is quite hefty for that size, especially with a NATO strap, and we'll move on to that in a second. Now, the stainless steel has a combination of brushed and polished on the case, and the polish kind of accentuates those lines and gives it a more stylized, nice feel. Now, a little detail that is kind of just an aesthetic detail that I'm a big fan of is the fact that the NATO strap is kind of in a charcoal grey, and that charcoal grey matches quite nicely with that brushed stainless steel. When we look at the 4 o'clock mark, we can see those iconic crown guards holding and supporting that crown. Now, the crown almost reminds me of my Amiga Seamaster a little. It's very iconic to Seiko for being in the position that it's in. From a glance, you can tell that this is a Seiko watch because of the location of the crown, and it's quite similar to the Amiga Seamaster. It has that helium escape valve at 10 o'clock. From a glance, you can tell it's an Amiga Seamaster, and I quite like that. Further to that, if you look on the side of the crown, instead of having the Seiko symbol or the Seiko logo, it actually has a little footprint, of course, of Peanuts, who's on the dial as well, which is a really nice, subtle little feature that not many people seem to be really talking about online, but I noticed it pretty much straight away. Another little detail that I love from Seiko, and something that they should have probably done, in my opinion, with the rest of their Seiko 5 38 models, is add a NATO strap. And I think the reason that I love this NATO strap is because of the colorway of this NATO strap. You have a beautiful dark charcoal grey against this kind of white color, and that white and charcoal grey play wonderfully into the black and white on the dial. And it just looks aesthetically brilliant. There's no colours here that are standing out too much. Nothing screams too loud, but it still draws the eye with those subtle limited edition details. I'm a fan. But One thing you do need to remember is it is a double pass NATO strap, as you can see here, so it does sit a little bit higher off the wrist than it normally would. The face and the bezel of this watch have so many little subtle details that us watch enthusiasts are infatuated with. And all of these can be seen on the Chisholm Hunter website, where we're actually official stockists of Seiko watches. Whether it's your first watch or you're just adding to the collection, make sure you head to chisholmhunter.co.uk. And by the way, we do have an exclusive discount code, not on this model, but on a couple of others, CHSUB, that is CHSUB, for 10% off. Make sure you use that at the checkout, and that is on selected lines. The bezel on this model, of course, comes in black, and it contrasts wonderfully with those silver numerals. It's really quite strikingly brilliant, the bezel. And it also has the polished kind of teeth round it, which highlights the disc inlay of that bezel and pops out those numerals a little bit more. It's just really wonderfully designed, especially because it's 350 quid. I mean, that's pretty awesome for the price. Now, it does sound pretty awesome as well. I'll play it now. It's quite good. I mean, it's a little bit stiff. It could be a bit more loose, but it's 350 quid. The font is really the highlight feature on this bezel, though. It's not the normal Seiko font that you'll find on these Seiko 5s to my right. It is the font that they use in the Peanuts magazine. And I'm going to read this off my phone because I don't want to get it wrong. It's the Schulz font. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But it's a nice little detail. The face on this model is where we get to some really nice, juicy detail. And you know what other watch has brilliant detail on the face is the Tissot PRX Ice Blue, which we're actually giving to you guys. It's worth £610, and all you need to do to enter is firstly, subscribe to the channel. Secondly, follow our Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches. And thirdly, comment with your favorite luxury watch or Tissot model. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel. And this is for you. The dial on this model is where we get to the real juicy watch enthusiast stuff. And let's start with the color. So it comes in this plain white color, not the off-white like the other 38mm that they've released, but just this really clean white dial. And the indices and the numerals are in silver, and it has super luminova. I'll show you that in a second. But everything is very aesthetically clean. The date window at the 3 o'clock mark, I can put up with the fact that it's at the 3 o'clock mark because something else is to the left. It has a blue Saturday text. The text for Saturday is blue, and it's this light blue color which plays wonderfully with that dial. And it's funny, because the whole dial and aesthetic of this watch is so clean and so neutral, that tiny little splash of color, whether it's the blue numerals or text for the Saturday or the red second hand, it's not too much. It's just enough, and it looks fantastic. The lume on this model is extremely bright, especially for how much this watch actually costs. Please remember that it's only worth £350, which, yeah, is a lot of money, but this lume competes with things that are way above that price bracket. On the dial, you can also see Peanuts perfectly positioned behind his surfboard. And this is the watch goodness that all of us enthusiasts absolutely love. But if you look a little bit closer, if you look at the surfboard, it's actually branded, of course, by Seiko 5. And the text is in the same text that they use in the Peanuts comics, which is just brilliant. Another little detail is the fact that it's not just the surfboard and Peanuts sticking out. They actually have almost like a landscape running across it that looks... It gives it more depth because it looks like it's closer to you. It's like they've added an extra layer, and it's just a subtle detail that looks brilliant. Now, when you flip this watch round to the back, you can actually see Peanuts surfing on his surfboard in the sea, and it looks awesome. The movement on this watch is absolutely brilliant for the money, and let's talk a little bit about it, because honestly, I don't think there's any other watches within the industry for £300 to £350 that offer an automatic in-house movement. The movement in this model is exactly the same as the other 38mm Seiko 5s. It's the caliber 4R36, which of course is fully automatic, comes in at 5.32mm in thickness, has 24 joules, beats at a frequency of 21,600 VPH, and has roughly 40 hours of power. And now we get to the important bit of this video. Now we get to the fact and matter why I would like this watch, or I might be buying this watch. And it all begins, of course, as most watch journeys do, with the quality for the money, and I say that because for the money, this is pretty brilliant in my opinion. And also the design. It's extremely neutral. It's extremely clean to me, but it also has a little bit of Seiko flair thrown in there. It's durable. It has a NATO strap. I wouldn't be worried about wearing this on the day-to-day, whereas I would be quite worried, as much as I love it, to travel or to go up a hill or to do something with my Omega Seamaster. Every time I scratch my Seamaster, I kind of get upset because it's a very expensive watch. Would I be as worried with the Seiko? Probably not. Now, the fact that it's limited edition obviously has an impact on my decision. I always liked kind of more obscure watches that are a little bit different, watches that not many people have. And if you think about the production of Seiko as a whole in a year, 8,900 watches isn't a lot. And worldwide especially, it's not a lot. So not many people, you won't really see many people wearing the same watch as you. And I quite like that. I quite like being unique. I know that's kind of, I'm wearing an Omega Seamaster and that's one of the most popular watches in the world, but that's beside the point. The final point is kind of a more personal one. It's sentimental value. You know, I still am, but I'm not doing it as much yearly. A travel videographer and photographer. I would get hired by brands like Canon and I would go traveling and film for them and give them the content. So last year, I traveled about 8 or 9 months of the year for work. This year, things have changed. I'm doing a lot more YouTube content with watches and with Chisholm Hunter, and I've also started my own podcast, Into the Mind. Chisholm Hunter Watches is growing, you know, my personal channel is growing. There's lots of stuff going on, but it means that I'm not traveling as much, and it's not a bad thing. It's just the start of a new adventure. And I think this is what this watch would signify to me. It's the start of a new adventure. But that's the thing. Maybe I'm just getting in over my head. I mean, I have been in this industry for almost 8 years, and I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you think this watch actually suits me? Do you like this watch? Do you think that there's anything that I missed and should maybe reconsider? Please let me know in the comments. I'd really value your guys' opinion here. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. And if you like seeing watches, then follow us on Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Harrison. This is the Chisholm Hunter channel, and we'll be back in a couple of days.